Hey everybody, a little bit different message for you today. I've got a bit of a consumer protection warning thing. We are about to see a potential big slug of secretly water damaged RVs entering the used market. So here's what's going on. If you've seen the news or the weather reports, or if you live in affected regions, there's been some major flooding in some zones. Well, before my family got into the RV business, they ran a very successful auto dealership, specifically specializing in late model, low mile used vehicles. And one of the things that we would notice would happen right after a whole bunch of floods, usually a couple months later, I said right after, but a couple months later, is a bunch of these flood affected vehicles, after things had gone through insurance companies and whatnot, would start running across auction blocks after they had gone through just the absolute bare minimum things necessary to make sure that they could run and drive across the auction block. They go through, people would clean them up. They would maybe change the grease in the bearings or something like that, just enough to make it move long enough. And these things would then be sold through like used wholesale auctions. But that's the thing, never in the local region where that would happen. So like if there's major flooding in the south, for instance, you would start to see a whole bunch of these vehicles flood the auction, well, no pun intended, up north. And if you didn't know what you were looking for, you could end up really getting yourself into a nasty pinch. But the thing is, that behavior is not necessarily exclusive only to vehicles. So I wanted to put that out there just in case you keep an eye out on some used vehicle lots in non-flood regions over the next 3 to 6 months. You may really want to have take that vehicle to an independent inspector, like your own third-party mechanic, to have those things checked out to make sure there's not some sort of hidden problems out there. But the same thing, to a lesser degree, but can still happen in the RV industry. If you look at like this, if you look at this thing right here, or these couple examples, those are going to be total flood losses. There was way too much water, way too high up on the RV for way too long, and it's going to be a nasty problem. Where it becomes a little bit of a question mark is when you see stuff like this right here. I call it a low flood, where it might come up above the axles. It might just start kissing the floor a little bit. Someone's gonna potentially go through it. And, the insurance company effectively has to buy these things and take them on, and they get shipped somewhere. Well, those people eventually could decide they want to resell them. And one of the sneaky ways to do that is to make it roadworthy enough to make sure it can get transported out of the local region to some more distant kind of wholesale auction block, and then silently run it through that auction block at a discounted price, because there is going to be some level of obvious water damage to it, but enough of it will generally look okay that some of them will still be purchasable and at least look close enough to the part that for a discounted price you could consider it. But the problem is, those things eventually have major problems. I think one of the most obvious of which is like rotten mold, mildew, things like that, potential literal health hazards, but you never have a clue what has really gotten into like electrical systems or anything like that. But here's the thing, you're thinking like, well, what kind of dealer would buy one of these and sell it to a person? Typically a dealer doesn't know, because they get run across an auction block. A dealer, a wholesaler might come look at this thing, and someone who's really well educated and has it, well, that was a loud exhaust, has it figured out, they might be able to pick up what's getting put down. But the whole thing is, a lot of these trailers that are targeted and run across the auction blocks are ones that aren't exactly super visually impacted, but it's the under the skin stuff you can't see. So what I'm getting at is that you, the consumer, may end up accidentally purchasing a used RV that has gone through some serious water flood damage and not realizing it. So what can you do to kind of protect yourself? I think one of the first and probably most obvious things is, consider employing the services of like a third-party inspector. Different dealerships have different policies on that. I think that if a store won't let you have an inspector come look at an RV, I think that is kind of a red flag to begin with anyway, but inquire if that's something that they're willing to entertain necessarily. inspectors have things like, moisture meters and the little like mold test strips they can rub on stuff that you and me probably, like, I work in this business, I don't have that stuff, but if I was an inspector, you bet your bottom dollar I probably would. The other thing here is make sure, especially again if we're looking at a used RV, you're finding something, you ask if it has a clean title. Because if these things have gone through an insurance salvage process like that, they will no longer have just a straight, clean, clear title. They will be some kind of salvage title or something like that. And if you're still okay with it, understanding that, that's totally up to you. But I definitely, like, if you get through the entire purchase process, no one ever breathes a word of that, and you go to get handed the title and you find out it's a salvage title, for me, that's an immediate put on the brakes. Something was completely undisclosed, something potentially very financially or even health impacting that nobody talked about. And I would certainly want to know before I spent my money and put myself and my family into that thing. So if you appreciate the quick little break from the norm here, just helping you stay protected no matter where you buy. And all these things, I mean, put us to the test too if you're considering shopping with us or not, whatever. Just make sure you put yourself in a position where you're educated and you're not finding out until it's way too late after the fact and your money is spent that you got a Tina Turner camper, one that was rolling down the river. Nobody wants to find that out after the fact. You'd rather keep your good job in the city. All right, I'm done. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.